The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It's also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning, coming to you live. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours live, and we've got quite a lot in store for you. You know, Wednesday is my favorite day. A lot of days, most days, we have Dr. Doreen Grandpichet with us answering your questions live. We do not have her this week, but we will have her next week. However, we have live with us Evelyn Kung, who is the clinical director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, an amazing expert. She's going to be answering your questions in just a few minutes. Then a little bit later on in the next hour, we're having Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspaw-Jackson will be joining me. We'll have two amazing guests. Dr. Amy Sarin is going to talk to us about touch points. This is new technology that helps to lower stress and can be something that's very interesting to use with individuals who are on the autism spectrum. We know that anxiety is a big part of this journey for everybody, right? So we're going to talk with her about that. And then we also have Nancy Silberkleit is going to be with us. She is one of the co-CEOs of the Archie comic series, and she has started a new part of the Archie comics with a character that is on the autism spectrum, and talking about bullying and how when someone is different, that we need to be sort of extra nice instead of less nice, right? So she's going to be with us talking about that. Big show, plus a bunch of in the news, a lot of people talking about a couple of new studies that are out. Nancy will be here with me and we'll give you our take on that. All that's happening, but we also are including you in the conversation, and that's why Samantha is going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us, some of the different ways that you can be writing in and watching. While she shows you that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. I know I told you we've got a retool coming up. I think very soon you're going to see our new website, and that's going to be a very exciting thing. But for now, on that page, if you will click on the triangle that's on the computer screen, it starts the live show or the most recently recorded live show. To the side of all of that is the live feature. If you put your cursor in the box that says your comment, you can type and hit enter. That's all it is. You don't have to log in. You don't have to have a username or a password or a credit card or prove that you're not a robot. All you just type and enter. It doesn't tell us who you are or where you are, so please be as specific as possible. If you're watching a recorded show and you want to write in a question, you absolutely can. Just make sure that you reference what it is that you're watching. So when you guys write it and say, when he said this, did he mean this? I don't know which he, so be as specific with your pronouns as you possibly can. And if we haven't shown you the lower third lately and you don't know, describe. You know, the gentleman who's talking about fishing in Yemen. Why does he think that's a good idea? Right, whatever it is. Anyway, we love your interaction. It's our favorite thing. So please write in and tell us what you're thinking, what's kicking your can, what's making you happy. All right, I'm muffling Mike. So we're going to fix that. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to have your questions answered by Evelyn Kung. Stick with us.
Everyone, welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way!
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course! Here we go!
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So
Yay.
let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half. And what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm going to just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we'll be using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're going to be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm going to take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm going to do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of felt and we're going to cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm going to fold it in half and I'm just going to cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry if it's too big. You can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm going to glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We gotta help him out with that. So what I'm gonna do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm gonna peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there and one there. And then I'm also gonna put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him. I'm alive! Alive! I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye.
Bye! And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autism-live.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us right now Evelyn Kung. She is the clinical director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. She's been working in the field of autism for more than 20 years, correct?
Long time, yeah.
And working with all kinds of individuals from very young to, I love to hear you talk about teenagers because I think you have a particular expertise in that area and young adults. And you know that I have been after you for years to take some of the notes that you have that you share with our teen clients and make books.
I would love to do it. It's just sitting down and taking the time to do it.
And I know, and part of it is that you're too busy working with individuals to do that. But I'm glad that we have you here so you can impart some of your wisdom, but more people would like your wisdom too. So I'm just going to push and say book, 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 because I want some of the books. I need some Evelyn Kung help, right? No, because I'll tell you what, you guys, you know what she does is that you have lists of things, like checklists, to notice, to pick up on social cues. I need them. So it isn't even just about my kid. I need your book. Okay. So welcome. Thank you for being here to fill in. You've become a regular now. Whenever we don't have Dr. Grant-Pichet, you fill in for us.
It's really fun to do this show.
Well, it's
You're
exciting
amazing.
for us. So I really, you're amazing. So, so there. But anyway, and can I just say a little known fact too, because I don't think we've talked about it, or maybe briefly mentioned it, that a year ago when I went to NASA with Temple Grandin, that Evelyn Kung came with me and your daughter came with me too. You guys crewed for me to be there. We have pictures somewhere.
It was so fun.
Wasn't it like
trip.
one of the, I mean, it's one of those things I'm going to be talking about the rest of my life. But in any case, you're here to answer some questions and I'm going to start throwing them at you. But we always like to start the show by reminding folks that there is no expert in this format that can give individual specific advice, because it would be a disservice to the person that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to have more contact, more time, and some kind of direct contact. There are some cases where people can do telehealth by Skype, but even that is much more intimate than writing a question in. So know that the advice that you're going to hear here is just suggestive in nature, and that it's supposed to help you to know where to go next in your decision-making process, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe to go back to the expert that's working on your particular case and ask them more questions, or to know what questions to ask next. I always say half of it is knowing what to ask.
Definitely. Right? Knowing what to ask and just what not to ask.
There you go. Right, saving time. Yeah. Well, and let's be honest that when you're in front of an expert, it's money. It costs you time and money. And so hopefully maybe this can condense so you don't waste time when you go to talk to that expert.
Definitely.
All right. So first question that we've got is, hi, ma'am. I am a father of a 5-year-old son who is suffering with generalized epilepsy, autism, and wheat allergy. I am from India, and I am very despaired. I really don't know what future has stored for us here in India, as most of my extended family members don't understand the emotions of my wife at the moment. Please help and guide us further. I am also trying to emigrate to Canada for the better future and possibilities for my daughter, who is 8 years old and really doing good by the grace of God. Regards, from this gentleman. So 8-year-old on the spectrum, family is not understanding the emotions that mom is having. This is not unusual, right?
Yeah.
Although there are different cultures and different countries that are at different levels of acceptance of when somebody has different abilities, and sometimes disabilities. So what can we say to this dad to prop him up?
You're not alone.
Yeah.
So I went to India 20 years ago, and I spent 3.5 weeks there. And it was with a family that I'd been working with on remote supervision.
Yes.
So they were business people, and I would go wherever they were, and they got moved countries a lot. And when we went there, I mean, it was the first country I'd ever been to 20 years ago where the special education school didn't allow kids with autism in the school. That's 20 years ago. And I've heard that things have changed in some places where now there are schools with autism and specialize in that, because the population there has also grown, just like here. So you're not alone. I think that there is, if you have the ability, what the people, like the families that we worked with several telehealth families in India, we've had several families move here and go different places, is that there's a lot of people who need employment. So if you can somehow work on the remote aspect and get a BCBA, someone in to come in and do some kind of consultation. I would also say use skills.
Yes.
And being able to have a framework and try to figure out things on your own. A lot of families have been really successful using skills. to try to just say, hey, I can have some control of my child. And in an environment where nobody is supportive or they don't understand, I think it's difficult no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
And, the cultural concerns that happens. In some ways, India is actually easier than being in the US because gluten isn't in everything and wheat isn't in everything. The rice aspect of things is, any country that has rice also as a staple, it's so much better because you can use the rice aspect, which doesn't have the wheat, or the gluten or whatever it is. And then just being able to try to figure out, if you can get a consult in, to get somebody to create a program for you. Hired help in India is a lot cheaper. If you're considering immigrating to Canada, that's great. But we have families who actually move back to India.
Yeah.
They come here temporarily. They get their child a program started.
Yeah.
And then they know that it's just going to be cheaper to live in India than it is, in the U.S. So they kind of get it starting, and then they go back, and they have hired help. There's so many people that we were able to train, to teach, to implement programs, to do the therapy part. But getting a consult in there, and the method works.
Yeah.
It really works. And in that process too, as you train more people to work with your child, there's more support for your wife. It's indirect, but it is direct in the sense that that you're teaching, you're learning, the emotional aspects. If he has epilepsy, doctors, that's just difficult in general.
Yeah.
There's no prescribed medication right now just for autism, or very few medications that are for certain aspects or behaviors, but there's not a lot known right now, no matter where you're at. And I think that, just reaching out, I think there's a lot of information out there. And there's a community too. There might not be somebody local, but there are a lot. I know, like in our Silicon Valley, we have a lot of Indian families here.
Yeah.
Who are here either on a work visa, or they've immigrated here, or if they're on a work visa, we have so many, like I was saying, that have come here and they make the plan to go home.
Yeah.
But it's just that they're getting the foundation here. So I don't know, what is available, but there is hope. It's amazing sometimes when I'm in other countries, because I've traveled a lot and I've done a lot of, consultant work in other countries. Sometimes what people don't know is also a blessing.
Yeah.
Because you can just do your own thing and everybody accepts it.
Yeah.
There's the immediate family who might not understand why your child can't eat something or do something. But I always say, just put that on the medical. So just say the doctor said the child can't do this.
Yeah.
But it's there. Sometimes just the assistance that you can get living abroad is so much easier than here.
Well, that's a great way of looking at it. I want to say, too, that we have a couple of moms who are regular watchers of the show that are in India, that are using skills. And, I think for any parent, there is an aspect of autism, at least at some point, where you feel terribly alone.
Yes.
Like you are the only person on Mars and no one gets it. And you can even feel that way within a marriage. You know what I'm saying? And with a great spouse, I'm saying it is pervasive. Everybody feels that at some point. And the crazy thing is that there are other people out there that just want to take your hand, and that you never really know until you kind of come out of the tunnel of it a little ways, how many people are there for you. And the great thing about the internet right now is that we can all be connected really easily, just like you and I are connected right now. And so for your wife, there are other moms in India who would love to talk to her and probably
definitely
share some of the exact problems. And if you want to be connected to them, email me, s.penrod@autism-live, and we can see if we can connect you connect you with some of those moms, so that you feel like, oh, somebody who gets it. And I would say to you, every single autism parent at some point has a moment where it's like, I don't know if I can do this. It just seems so big, so tall. It's impossible.
Yeah, so many families, so many moms have told me that. And a lot of times, the parents are like, you just cry for your child. Yep. Internally, externally, you just cry for them. But crying doesn't help them anyway. So then that's actually what motivates a lot of our parents, saying, I need to do something so that I'm not crying.
Yep. Yep. I love Lisa Ackerman from Taka says, when you hear autism, it's not game over, it's game on. And action actually helps. when you feel paralyzed and like there's nothing that you can do, that's the worst, right? If you start taking a little action, I always take the metaphor of the mountain, right? Because you stand at the bottom of the mountain and you look up and it looks like it can't be done, right? But if you start walking, you find yourself on the mountain and you maybe can't see the peak anymore, but you're moving.
Yes.
And if you keep moving, you get places. And maybe everybody doesn't get to the top of the same mountain, right?
Yep.
But we all get someplace. So, you know, somebody had said to me way back in the beginning, just do one thing every day. One foot in front of the other, do one thing. Figure out what's the one thing I'm going to do today. And often you find you feel better after you do the one thing, so you end up doing a second one and sometimes a third one, and then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I've done enough today, right? I can sit down for a second. But you will be okay, and your daughter will be okay, and your wife will be okay. Hang on. You know what I always say on this show? Hold hands. Si
Yes.
se puede, we can do this. And you don't have to be alone. But anybody who's watching, you can write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. There are people with kids with autism all over the world, and they're waiting to take you into their arms.
Definitely. And there's some amazing people that I met in India who just are trying to do as much as they can.
Yep.
And, you know, it's just finding them. There's just a lot of people, too.
And since we talked about Skills, they would kill me if I didn't say this. So Skills is an online tool. It has many different aspects to it. You can call them at 877-975-4559, or you can visit www.skills, F-O-R, for Skills for Autism, but the F-O-R, not F-O-U-R, and not the number 4, autism.com. And it's the curriculum that CARD is famous for. It's the curriculum that my son had, the exact same curriculum. If you want to learn all the things that you need to know to be able to implement the curriculum in the best possible way, there's a different tool, which is you can go online to ibehavioraltraining.com. It's the Institute for Behavioral Training. They sell modules of great people who will teach you how to do all the things that you need to do. You pick topics. Both of these things are infinitely affordable. They're much, 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 much less expensive
Yes.
than an ABA program, but it's a lot more work because you're doing legwork. But nobody's left out. So I hope that you will find something in what we said, some hope, and I'm sending you hope and a hug, okay? We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more of your questions coming in on Facebook and on the live feature. Stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I was just having Evelyn diagnose me during the break.
Ridiculously.
We were just talking about all the things that I have in my head that are wrong. Okay, I've got a couple of different questions that have come in. We're here with Evelyn Kung. She is the clinical director of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So, Johanny on Facebook says, my 5-year-old son, who is on the spectrum, has been in regular preschool for 2 years, but is suddenly started hitting and screaming. No idea why or the cause. Using token reward. When he doesn't win, it's bad.
Yes, I know this child.
Okay.
Or some
yay.
version of this child.
Yes. Okay.
So I always say that initially we put our kids into preschool because, hey, what you're supposed to do. It's how you educate, socialize, all these things.
And the school pressures you to.
Yeah, and the schools pressure you to do that too, because early childhood education is so important. But what happens is a lot of times we put our kids who are on the spectrum in thinking that they have a social issue, so we're going to put them in a social setting and just let it go. But a lot of times our kids who, let's say the really vocal, verbal kids, will go in at 3, and half of the kids in their class don't even speak clearly yet. The typical kids. So then it's easy for our kid because they can kind of control things because they do speak, and they can speak about what they want and everything. But when you're there a few years, what happens between 4 and 5 is some perspective taking begins. Their language improves immensely for the typical kids. And our kids are still kind of in the same place. And if there's no intervention, they're still talking about what they want to do. And they've also been in this place where they've probably had some control. But now these other kids are coming in that are neurotypical and insisting on their ways and gaining perspective on each other. And that whole cognitive part, that whole understanding that somebody else feels differently, thinks differently, that if I don't move behind here, nobody will see me. Their senses, they're whole aware of all their senses, all develops. But the kids on the ASD, that's what's difficult for them. They're not getting all the nonverbal cues. They're not looking ahead to see what's coming. They're not reading all of, this information that's being passed in the environment. And so then our kids notice immediately that something's changed. And if they don't have the language capacity to be able to ask somebody or to question why things have changed now, or how did you know that, or why don't you like that today? You used to like it, last week you liked it, but today you don't. Life is increasingly frustrating. And they don't have this language to find out information, especially for kids on the spectrum. A lot of times they want to know what's coming, but they don't know how to ask those questions. They don't know how to make the inferences about what's coming. And so all those changes makes life in a classroom very difficult. So you could be a 5-year-old pre-K now, and you're having a lot of frustration because these kids weren't acting the same way that they were acting 2 years ago. They're not playing the same games. There's less control because language isn't so good. They're missing all these cues in nonverbal communication, and this whole sense of perspective taking hasn't started developing. And what do I do if I can't get what I want and I can't get the information and I can't do anything? I'm going to start hitting and yelling and screaming because I don't like what's happening, and this is how I'm communicating now.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with autism is all these behaviors like hitting, screaming, screaming are a part of the diagnosis of autism. It's a result of not being able to communicate, not understanding what's going on, and not being able to vocalize and have some control of your environment.
Which honestly, I'm just going to tell a little bit on myself. It's kind of what we were talking about during the break, isn't it?
It's just a different version, right?
Yes.
It's an adult version.
Yes, because I was saying, I said to Evelyn, I said, something is wrong with me that when I have a lot to do and I'm hectic and I have all these like drop down menus in my brain and I'm like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I'm, got a little too much going on. And then my husband will say to me, some innocuous, really just making conversation, not really a question, but just like, should I make eggs? Right? But it's verbal coming into my nonverbal space where I'm trying to whatever. And I literally become nonverbal. I'm like, I cannot get words out to say, don't talk to me right now. Like I can't even get that much out. And honestly, you guys, I throw a little bit of a...
But we all do, though. I mean, you may become nonverbal. Somebody may go into screaming terror.
There you go. Well, eventually, to get verbal, I have to kind of like flip to, I'm like, not now, right? And my husband just like doesn't, we've been together for almost 20 years now. And I want to say this, like, that's how my brain works. Like when you see me frantic, don't make conversation questions.
Yes.
But I imagine like I'm incredibly verbal, right? I can talk you under the table. And I'm an adult, and I have some semblance of self-regulation, although we need to check it from time to time, right? But so I try to imagine if I did not have that, and I was in a kindergarten where there's a lot of sensory things going on, and things are not going the way I need them to go, and if I had an agenda in my head and people were not doing it, I would be screaming again.
Oh, I would be screaming bloody murder. Like, I don't understand. Why aren't you talking to me? Like, what's going on? You said we're going to do this, but you changed your mind. What does that mean? You can't change your mind? Like,
and maybe that's
literally.
everything that's going on in his head, but he cannot say that. And that's a very frustrating thing. Okay, so now we have a little bit of an idea of what, that there's some frustration going on. What can they do to make it better?
There's so many things, and this is where there's this misunderstanding about what one-to-one therapy is.
Okay.
Versus like, let's just put them in the setting and let them go. There's a whole basis and there's a whole set of rules and things that these kids aren't learning naturally. So they need to be taught. Some of the rules are like just nonverbal communication. My little 9-year-old boy that looked at me the first time we told him about body language and facial expressions, and he said, "I think you're just lying to me." Why? He literally, 9-year-old's like, why would we need this nonverbal communication when we all speak English and we all can speak clearly to each other? This is a 9-year-old with a super IQ.
Right.
But he's just like, I think you're just lying to me. Why should this even matter? And that's like the perfect articulation. Right?
What the rest of our kids who don't have enough language might be thinking but can't get to the point to say. That's fascinating.
And this is, so there's all this teaching that has to be done. And you're not going to want to teach in the middle of an emotional outburst.
Right.
You don't learn anything. All of us do not learn anything if we're really emotionally involved in any conversation. You have to be calm, quiet. And this is where like the ABA part really comes in, and you say, okay, there are these things. Like sometimes it's just strict, just teaching them like, this means come here, this means stop, if people's expressions, sometimes it's just really strict teaching, and then learning how to use that in the environment is a whole different story. So many of my kids, another kid told me one time, she's crying, but she says she's fine, so I'm just going to choose with the words, she's fine. I'm like, no, sorry, emotions of a person actually matter more than what words they're saying. Right. So what does crying mean? And he'd already learned it because we've done all these years of therapy, and he's like, it means she's hurt or she's, sad or something. But she said she's fine.
Right.
So it's not matching, and that is like the critical like interaction that our kids are like, this is just stupid.
Well, every man in the world needs that lesson. Right? It's not just our kids. Every man in the world needs that lesson. If the woman is crying and she says she's okay, she's not okay.
Well, this kid is probably 10 years old, fifth grade. On the playground, a girl got hit by a ball, and she was embarrassed.
Yes,
really, that's what she was. She didn't want people, but she was like, her eyes were tearing away.
Right.
It was like literally, she's really hurt. And so we actually had an aide who was undercover and kind of explained it to him. Said, looked at it, but at home, then we sat down and talked about, yes, they don't know match. We know that this is not clear. But in reality, emotions of a person do matter more than whatever words they're saying at the moment. You attend to this more. And there's all these, cognition rules and all these rules about how she's feeling, not just how you feel about it, or how you've made the interpretation, like I'm hearing this and I'm just going to take this and not ignore the other part. And there's all these social rules that these kids have to learn.
Yeah. But you're saying that it really has to be taken outside of that. The thing that I always think about, see, we're in the Olympics mode right now because the Olympics are getting ready to start. And if you wanted to have someone learn ice skating, you wouldn't just throw them out onto the ice and go, now go skate with all the other kids and expect them to become Olympic champions.
Yep.
Like that would never happen. Even if you, had a big group class and said, okay, this is how we toe pick, right? Some of them would get it, some of them wouldn't. They're not all going to be Olympic champions. If you want somebody to actually get good at something, you need to pull them out of line and say, come over here and I'm going to show you just the toe pick part. Then you can go and skate a little bit, then come back and I'm going to show you how to skate backwards. With that one-to-one kind of thing, where I'm going to teach you this increment by this increment by this increment, so that you really can get it and then implement and then go back, teach it, implement. And sometimes we're just throwing kids into school in social situations without that one-on-one. So would you, hard to say, but probably, 5 years old, he's probably in kindergarten this year. But we would try to make sure that all the hours outside of kindergarten would be one-on-one ABA.
Yes, definitely. And really teaching, the social aspects. And even before the social aspects, you have to check to see if basic language skills, knowing how to ask good questions, has to be there, or he's not going to get all those things going on in his head answered if he doesn't know how to ask. So really, a lot of times we get fooled because this kid talks a lot, but speech therapists will say they overuse these words. And you see that in a lot of assessments. That the kids overuse the words that they have, and that's because the vocabulary is not big enough. But we feel like since they talk so much, of course they have all the language skills. And so a lot of times I always say, before I can make you social, I have to make your language at least at your age, or age appropriate. Because you have to be able to say all those thoughts and those social things going on in your head.
Did everybody just hear that? How important it is, vocabulary, for your social skills to be, your vocabulary has to be close to age appropriate to be successful socially.
Yeah, and really, I mean, all basic language skills are there. If you look at the skills curriculum, the language starts really heavy and it fades by time, you hit 7 or 8, there's no more skills to learn.
Right.
Because you should have actually basic language fundamentals all intact by 6, 7, 8 in there. And then once it's all intact, you're purely working on what we call social language, because it involves somebody else and all the characteristics of social language that typical kids will start learning earlier, but maybe it's not so prevalent or needed when they're younger.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of language that needs to be learned so that somebody can really be successfully social.
There we go. Okay, I said before the last one was a Facebook. It wasn't. It was a YouTube. Now I'm going to go to a Facebook question. Karen writes in and says, "Hi, I have had my son recently diagnosed with ADHD combined plus high-functioning autistic spectrum disorder, also intermittent explosive disorder. From the diagnoses, I don't know what to do. The schools aren't being supportive. Is there anywhere I can go to seek guidance on services available to him?"
The difficult part is whenever we get kids coming in who have multiple diagnoses, that they're all related, it's which one do you attend to first?
Right.
And the example Dr. Grampiche used to actually use all the time is that if you have, in the past diagnoses, if you had a cough and you had bronchitis, which one does the doctor diagnose? The more severe one, which is bronchitis, not just the cough.
Okay.
And that was the last diagnostic manual for criteria for autistic disorder. But now with the new DSM, you're allowed to have autism and ADHD, or autism and another comorbid diagnosis. So now, in some ways, I feel like I've seen more families a little bit more confused.
Yes.
And what you're looking at is you're going to look at the most severe one first, and that probably would be the autism. And within autism, there is a whole memory and sustaining attention area that's really difficult. It's all the executive function skills that are hard for our kids, and then sometimes that manifests. If it affects enough areas, you will get that ADHD diagnosis alongside of it. Sometimes it's given, but we find I don't actually have that many kids that come in that have both.
Okay.
They're taking that autism part of not being able to maintain attention as diagnosing it, but when we actually teach them like how to pay attention, how to sustain attention, how to work with divided attention, being able to switch back and forth, suddenly that aspect of attention goes away and you don't see that diagnosis anymore. In the same way, we don't get intermittent explosive diagnoses as often, but we do get them. And a lot of times, though, there are a few kids that definitely qualifies as their diagnosis, but in the majority of the time, it has to go back to the behavior. They're so upset, they have no control. Maybe they don't have enough language. Maybe they're just like things aren't just going the way that they want them to go. So then they get angry, because a lot of times these kids actually are the smartest.
Yeah.
Because they can see that it's easier for everybody. It's easier to make friends. It's easier to go to social situations. It's easier to just blend in with people than it is for them. And I see so many kids, and I've had kids tell me they're so angry about it.
Yeah.
And that's also the depression kids too. The kids who get depressed, a lot of them aren't depressed because, something didn't go their way just one time. It's that they're smart enough to see around them and see that everybody else has it easier than me.
Okay.
They know how to be social. They know how to do these other things. And then, but with the anger explosions, it's teaching them how to manage them. And it's teaching them how to understand the function of the behavior. Like we go back to ABA, it's like, what's the function of the behavior? If it only happens in certain situations, there's probably another way to handle it. Maybe socially, there's a social skills and social rules that they need to learn about this. If they're really smart, a lot of times they explode because they know it works. And so it's the easiest to go to, because if I explode, I know everyone will give me what I want, or at least even if they don't give me what I want, they'll leave me alone. You know, so there's a lot, it's all intermingled, and it's getting a good professional to go in there and try to tease out, like, what are the deficits? What skills are this kid missing? Because this kid is using all these other things, you know, as a replacement to some degree. So even my kids who have the intermittent explosive, like that diagnosis, there's a certain component, rate, that is taken away once we teach them.
Yeah.
Give them more control, teach them how to use their language, teach them the right social skills to get what you want, because the social skills you're using with your peers is not going to be the same social skills you use with your parents or with your teachers.
Yes.
You know, if you're not getting your way. A teacher, you can't just walk up and say, I'm not doing this in front of the class, because that's a whole loaded issue. But you might appear on a playground. If you don't want to do something, you can't just say, I don't want this, and you walk away, and it's not a big deal.
Right.
And so there's just so many layers in here, and it's really getting somebody to work like from the get the behavioral component going on, figure out what the deficits are, figure out, you know, how the function of the behavior, and then what's left. I would say do behavioral first,
right?
Figure out what's left, and then if there's other issues, you know, needs or ways.
But
to
it
address
sounds
things.
like what she needs is really good quality ABA.
Yes.
Somebody who's doing cognitive and executive functions, which is not all ABA providers, unfortunately.
It's not.
So when you figure out who your ABA provider is, ask them if they have proficiency dealing with these kinds of things.
Because a lot of ABA providers won't even want to touch this kind of kid too.
Which is so unfortunate and disappointing.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot that can be done to help him to regulate all these things going on.
Yes.
Really can be very miraculous. Because I'm a parent who I had CARD, so I ask everybody's forgiveness, but I love CARD and wax poetic about CARD. But CARD is good quality ABA, and they do the executive functions and the cognition stuff. And you have a team of BCBAs that are driven by research, and so across the country, they're talking to each other and saying, oh, I've got a kiddo who's just like this. Do you know what we did with them? That you have people talking to each other. I think it's a really beneficial thing. So forgive me, but I'm going to recommend CARD to you, centerforautism.com, and then check the locations tab to see if there's one near you within 30 miles from you. But if not, then you're looking for a good quality ABA provider, and there are good quality ABA providers, but you really have to be picky, because be careful that you get with the right people with this kind of a kiddo.
Yeah, and also there's, like, let's say you did the behavioral and you're trying, and there's a medication component that comes up. There are medications that really help with paying attention, and there are some that help with the intermittent. And that's what, make sure your ABA provider is willing to work alongside and collaboratively with your psychiatrist or whoever is prescribing, because you know, unfortunately, this ABA really is a new field. And I get comments from physicians all the time that say, we wish we would have an ABA provider that actually listens the way you guys listen, take data the way you listen. Because I always say, like, when we work really collaboratively with a child that needs it, you see the miracles on both ends. Yeah. So if you are looking at medications, and we're the ones that can provide the doctors the data about how is this child really doing, and it's very objective. It's just not how you know that day a general description. I mean, it's amazing what that relationship can really do, because you can provide some data about, okay, is the med working? You know, oh, on this day, what happened? Why did the behavior go up? I forgot to give the medication. Right. Or this is working. Or like I recently had a child who, and sometimes they keep our staff blind. I always say, tell a supervisor if you're choosing to keep the therapists who work with them blind. That's one thing, but you need to tell somebody so we know what's going on.
Yeah.
But almost immediately I see this girl and I'm like, you did something medication-wise.
Right.
And then mom on the side was like, yeah, I took her off.
Right.
And her behaviors were over the top. And I just said, can you please talk to her? Here's all our data on her behavior right now. She's off. Something needs to change because she's becoming dangerous and, and safety becomes an issue. And she's a big 9-year-old. Yeah. And so it was just like, and finally mom was like, okay, I'm talking to the psychiatrist. I'm giving, the data. Okay. And showing them. And so really
we do love that you guys take the data on everything.
But that collaborative aspect is, I think, very important too.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we've got a couple of questions from a 40-year-old who's on the spectrum. And we've got a mom who is working in her daughter's school and's got some issues because of that. So we love having your questions. Keep sending them in. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. Stick with us.
Logan Shepard. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepard is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepard now.
All I really want to say is, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream that one day I can just inspire people and never give up, because that's what I want to do in life, because if I can succeed, they can succeed, and I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the CARD method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-CARD. Rock on, Logan.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Evelyn Kung. She is the clinical director for the Center for Autism. We have a couple of questions I want to get to, but Rana has written in on Facebook and says, "Hi Shannon, CARD is not calling me back. I left over 2 messages, been a couple of weeks. I'm in Seattle." Let me be clear that when you go to the locations tab on the Center for Autism, you will get the individual offices. And they list a phone number. I wish they didn't, because me as a parent, it makes me think, oh, this is the phone number I'm supposed to call. It's not. I don't know why. Don't ask me. But the phone number that you want to call is that 800 number that's up at the top of the page. Look to see if there's an office near you, but don't call the office directly. They should still get back to you, but it might be a number that somebody, is on maternity leave. I don't know, but it's not the number to talk to them about starting services. No matter where you are in the world, if you want to start services, you want to call that 800 number. Samantha, can you put that up on the screen for them so that they don't have to go? Because I don't remember what it is.
The other thing you can do is if you go to centerforautism.com, there's a little button, and we're trying to make it bigger, but it says enroll. If you just go in there and you type in just basic information, somebody will call you back really quickly.
Very quickly, because those are the people that is their job. And if for any reason, I'm so glad you wrote in, but if for any reason that doesn't work for you, call me. Because I will make sure that you get help.
And she does make sure.
I do. So I take that very seriously. And you can also email me too. But I don't think I've ever given my phone number out on the show, but I'm going to do it right now. How's that? So my phone number is 818-345-2345, extension 1013. So you can call me, and I'm going to get a bunch of phone calls. That's all good. But call them first. I'm looking up. It's at centerforautism.com. Or did they take the 800 number off?
Well, I think, is it still
Because they want you to
800-345 card?
Samantha's looking for it. So we'll get that for you. And they might have taken it off because they do want you to use the parent portal,
yes.
Which is the thing that Evelyn was talking about, the very small button. Do you know what the button says?
Enroll.
Enroll. And okay, so there's the phone number to get to the people to say that you are interested in talking about starting services. So unfortunately, though, calling the offices direct, I wish they'd take that number off. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It is, it's intuitive that if you go and look at the location and see your location, I would call the number.
I would too.
But anyway, however, it's not the efficient number to call. So now we just gave you the insider view. There was the phone number. You can call that, or you can call me. It's all good. And now I just lost my place in terms of the questions that I had. But we had a 40-year-old who wrote in and said, there's not a lot of help for adults with autism. I'm 40. I was diagnosed at 3, but it's like since I'm adult, it does not matter. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to say, I need help. I have seizures. I'm in diapers, and I just started to live by myself for the first time, and I get freaked out. I cannot even drive.
It's so unfortunate. And unfortunately, every state has a different mandate about what age their autism services, like for medical funding, is going to go to. Some states it cuts off right at 21, some it goes over. So I would say make sure that you're looking to see like what is the mandate in your state, to see like the type of funding that you have access to. If you're you're intelligent enough to write in and be very articulate about what your needs are and what your deficits are, so you're very aware too of what you need. And it makes sense that you are freaked out living alone. A lot of people are freaked out living alone. But somebody must be helping you somehow in terms of securing your place and where you're living. And if not, if there is like a local like Department of Developmental Disabilities or something, there has to be some kind of social network that maybe they haven't helped you in the past, but I'd encourage you to reach out to them and be persistent. And tell them that you need help, and not just one time, but tell them until somebody actually comes and helps you. Because there are so many, there are programs out there. Unfortunately, there's long wait lists.
Yeah.
But if you can get somebody to help you, even like, get a roommate, or you're very self-aware in the sense that you have seizures and that you're in a diaper and that shouldn't be, but there are things that can help. So being able to talk to your physician that's prescribing your medication for your seizures, I'm assuming that you might be on, that is another person saying like, I need help, and get them to try to find a social worker to help you. There has to be a way. The question is always the wait list aspect of it, but there's somebody can help you, and you have the right for help. But you have to be persistent. If you just call one time or write one time, it doesn't really work in our system because there is such a long wait list. But if you're really persistent and you're very assertive in letting your physician know, any social worker you're working with know, even the local pharmacist who you get your prescriptions from, just like letting everybody know that you need some help and somebody reaching out. And I don't know who, if you have caretakers or people who come in and check on you, they all have to know that you need some help for this. And I'd say right now, that's the way I would encourage you. I just, I don't know your specific situation. I don't know where you live. Yeah. It really changes quite drastically by the state you're in because the laws are different.
Okay, and we had another adult question that came in that I'm going to get to in just a second, but I want to go pivot to this other one. And by the way, Rana, I just saw that you wrote in and said that's the number that you called. I don't know what the problem is, but obviously there's a problem, and we're going to check on that because maybe there's an issue with the phone number, and that would be an important thing to know, or they could be slammed. But still, somebody should have called you back. So do me a favor. I would like for you to email me your phone number. So s.penrod@autism-live.com. When the show is over, I will walk over and make sure somebody calls you. s.penrod@autism-live.com, and I won't share your phone number with anybody else, but I will walk down and make sure that somebody calls you, even if it's me. I'll have somebody
and she will do this.
And I will.
I've seen her many times.
Yes, they see me coming and they're like, what now? But anyway, It's all good. I said we all hold hands. So somebody wrote in and says, I have a tricky situation. I work at my daughter's school. She has ASD and ODD. She runs to my classroom whenever she has an assignment she doesn't want to do or in a disagreement with a classmate. Some days she comes to my room 5 or 6 times, some days none. How do I give her some encouraging words when she's upset? I'm supposed to just ignore my child when she's clear. Am I supposed to ignore my child when she's clearly upset and please help? Oh, this is rough. Everybody.
This is so rough, and unfortunately, I've actually seen this quite a few times.
Okay.
So it's
teachers have kids on the autism spectrum too. I mean, we're not exempt.
Yeah.
I'm a former teacher. I can't imagine, you're there at work and trying to do your thing, and there's your upset child at the door. It's not a good scenario.
The first thing to do is I'd call an IEP, because there needs to be a behavior plan in place to address this. The way that it's being resolved right now is that she comes to you, and it's probably been pretty effective for her.
For her, yeah. Not effective for anybody else, but for her.
Well, some ways, sometimes her teacher might say it's easier if it gets resolved somewhere else.
Ah, well, that's
because
true,
they're
isn't
busy.
it? Yeah.
They're busy doing their thing with the other kids that are still there. So you need to have a behavior plan, whole functional behavior assessment that, BCBAs or behaviorists do, and try to create a plan that works in that school setting.
Yeah.
Because it is your workplace, and her method should not be going to mom. Well, that's one of the reasons why, like in ABA, we have a team of people working with kids so that the kids know that somebody else can help resolve issues too. Yeah. And people function differently and different personalities, but that they can be helpful too. Yeah. But you need a BIP done, an FBA done, functional behavior assessment. That's where you go and look at a behavior, and it might be a few that you're writing behavior plans for. One might be, a social argument with a peer. One might be, I don't want to do this work, so she's escaping by running to your room. There's a lot of different things that could be sending her to you.
And a well-written BIP, behavior intervention plan, is going to have an antecedent modification, which means that there's something that's going to happen before she runs to your classroom. And it's going to have a consequence strategy where there's going to be something that happens as a result of her not coming to the classroom or coming to the classroom, right? And you will be told, perhaps, maybe, that you need to ignore it.
That could be one of the things, but there's also something called a replacement behavior.
Yes, that's the other part of the behavior. Thank you. That's the part I always forget, and that is the big part.
And in schools, I always talk, whenever I have a child in school, I want to create a behavior intervention plan that works in that environment.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's only that environment. And that's creating, whether it's rules and token systems, and she gets a reinforcer that's not you.
There you go.
It's important to find I always say it's important to find reinforcers in the school setting or whatever setting that you're in that the child can access, right, because that is the most functional.
Exactly.
So
amen to that.
So I'm always trying to, it's not, mom's not going to always be in the same school that she's at too.
That's right.
So you don't want you to be the way that gets, that is the reinforcer either. Your reinforcer is maybe when you're home and you're being mom, not when you're being teacher to some other kids. And so it's important that there's other things that she finds that she enjoys and that she truly likes in that environment. Sometimes you have to manipulate things, like, my favorite that I always like to do is I say whatever the favorite toy or book is in the school setting, I say, give it to the teacher, her teacher, and her teacher has the access delivery of did she finish or did she do a certain part, and being able to deliver that reinforcer, and it's limited in that setting, and then it goes back to the teacher, and that's the only setting. They don't get this book at home, they don't get this food at home, they don't get whatever it is anywhere else, and that makes the power of the reinforcer so much stronger for the teacher and so much more motivating for the child because she doesn't ever satiate on it.
Yeah.
And so it's finding a really good behavior intervention plan for all these behaviors implementing it in the school with replacement behaviors that are in the school, with reinforcers that are in the school environment, and you'll see it'll just help her tremendously,
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that in skills there is a BIP builder, and as a teacher to teacher, I would encourage you, there's a 14-day free trial to go on and just look at the BIP builder, because it's going to save so much time, and it's really good, and it's science-based, so that because if you have a great BCBA, great, but it will take your BCBA a long time to put together a BIP plan, and this will make it shorter for them. If you don't have a great BCBA on staff, you might get one that isn't effective. If that happens, just go on and check it on the I've done that before and been like, oh, this isn't, it gives you alerts and says this is not advised with this function of the behavior, and you go back to the BCBA and go, why are you doing that? Right?
And they might come back and say, that's all I know how to do, unfortunately.
Right. Well, you know what I mean? But whatever. So it's there for you, very, very inexpensive.
And there's not a lot of BCBAs in schools. A lot of times there's behaviorists, and it doesn't mean that they're well trained, unfortunately. I mean, it's really...
or have time to be up on all the latest research.
True.
Let's be honest. If you've got 7,000 kids, when do you have time to read about what's effective? And this will give it to you very quickly, and you can do the 14-day free trial and, whatever. In any case, I wanted very quickly, because we're out of time, we're past time, and I have to let you go, but there was another adult who wrote in and said, I have psych testing set up for autism, but the insurance denied the claim. And they said, I don't know what the steps are to be diagnosed.
So what got denied was the assessment?
That's what it looks like to me, that their assessment got denied. And first of all, I think it's a consideration for adults that you only need the diagnosis if you want services. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear about that. Mm-hmm. And there are some things you can do for yourself as an adult without you can give yourself the assumption. Many people have done that and said, I didn't go get the diagnosis, but I looked at all of it, and I feel that very strongly that, and people have told me, and there are things that you can do to help yourself even if you can't get the diagnosis. But what would they have to do to get a diagnosis as an adult, and how much, do you have an idea of what it would be out of pocket? It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it depends where you're at. Like a lot of university settings, it's typically a couple $1,000s if you do a full range. If you're just looking for diagnostic testing, it'll be shorter probably.
Okay.
It just depends how you present yourself and what kind of skills. Because let's say you're coming in and you're writing articulately, so maybe they're going to say, okay, we don't need to. You're intelligent enough right off the bat, so maybe we're only going to do, basic diagnostic testing, and it may be adaptive, because it would affect your ability to live independently or, appropriately or safely.
Right.
So that might be an aspect of it. But, we'll get adults who come in who somebody's still the caretaker. And then we will send people for full battery testing, because we're trying to figure out where their skills are at.
There we go.
Just being able to know more. And right now there's a diagnostic manual change of how you diagnose autism in 2015, I think, or 2013. I can't remember, DSM-5, whatever year. So all of the places right now that are looking at diagnosis, they all want you to have a current diagnostic manual diagnosis. That's the important part.
Yeah.
And a DSM-5 version.
Well, nobody should be using the old at this point now.
They're not supposed to, but a lot of people have a diagnosis when they're 3, and then they come in at 20, and then they're like, we need a current version.
To see if you still
qualify.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking to your insurance or whoever the funder is, there has to be a need, not just want to know. They won't fund it. There has to be a medical necessity if you're looking at insurance funding. Is it affecting your life somehow? Is it that you are having trouble being safe in the home or in the community? Are you isolated? So then that's a different kind of safety issue. It has to affect your life somehow.
So maybe you could appeal the decision with insurance, but you've got to put some things in there to say this is how this is affecting, and this is why it's a medical necessity.
Yeah, you have to show that it's a medical necessity of some sort. Otherwise, they're saying, well, you're just calling in and you want to know, and that's really not a medical necessity.
Okay. Okay, we are so out of time, and I'm so sorry that we kept you late, but thank you so much for being here. We're going to quickly go to break so that we can come back and do Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Big guest, Dr. Amy Sarin from Touch Points is going to be with us, and Nancy Silberkleit from Archie Comics. Stick with us.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Exciting. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
This is the sign they haven't. If you go that way, it's what be to the end. So I have to go this way. I'm just remembering this is the school.
He has this new infatuation with streets. First, we thought it was pretty cool because he was, it was like sight words, like he was learning how to read the street signs, and that was really cool. But then it turned into his new fetish, I guess you can say, where he starts to perseverate on the ways to go to like dad's work, the ways to go to school, the ways to go to camp, and like it's cool that he remembers how to go to places, but then it's to the point where if you take a different route, he gets really inflexible. So we're starting to break it and starting to redirect him to better questions like, oh, why are we taking this street, or where are we going, or who's going to be there, who am I going to see? More questions that are more relevant than street names. Are you playing your map still? Here's the deal, listen. You can play on your iPad, but you can't play this game.
We're very confident in the school that we're using this year. We're very happy there's only going to be 14 kids in his class. He's going to have a shadow, a brilliant shadow. So I'm excited about the school year.
We already set up goals for him at school. So a lot of them will be, for the most part, will be social goals, but we also have goals such as like him accepting changes in routine, being flexible about things. And for social goals, we have him initiating conversation with peers, and also having him be able to make at least 2 exchanges with the peer, whether it be answering a question or making a similar statement. For instance, like if the kid's like, oh, I like Toy Story, and he could say, oh, I like Toy Story too. Or something else like, oh, I don't like Toy Story, I like, A Bug's Life or something. Something else that is relevant, and he knows how to use these conversation skills that we've been teaching him at home, and trying to generalize it with kids that are his age.
She's going to try to be noticed as little as possible by the teachers and the students. She's going to help all the kids so as not to stigmatize Jack. Well, the teacher said something very nice in our meeting today, and that is she wants him to have a friend. She wants him to, and he has kids he adores, but I don't know that he has a true friend yet where they engage and play together, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Oswald-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Hi, friend.
I was just saying to her, doesn't she look stunning in this beautiful purple color? I hope it's reading on the camera. You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's fabulous. I'm very excited to be here this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you.
We've got a big show. And I have touch points here on the desk with me, and we're going to be talking about that with Dr. Amy Sarin in just a little while. But and then we're going to talk about Archie Comics, which is, how often do we get to talk about Archie Comics? It's a good day at Let's Talk Autism.
And we have some in the news here.
Yes.
Starting with a story that's disturbing. About mothers, and this is from the Daily Mail in the UK.
Yeah.
Many mothers speaking out about claiming that a poisonous epilepsy drug has left their children with autism, learning disabilities. incontinence, all kinds of issues that they were not warned about. The drug is called sodium valproate.
Yeah. And data has revealed that the drug raises the risk of babies suffering serious developmental disorders up to 40%, and malformations such as cleft palates or lips by 11% if taken during pregnancy.
Yeah, apparently there's a syndrome that they have different facial features, like they don't develop the bridge of their nose. And
it's such a scary time in the world for various and sundry reasons, but for pregnant women, it can be a really difficult thing. We do a lot on the show talking about P2I, and there's a lot of information that's out there if parents are interested before you get pregnant, during pregnancy, and right after pregnancy. I think a lot of times when we go to our regular GP and they say a medicine is okay, I know there were lots of medicines, bless you. There were lots of medicines that I was prescribed when I was pregnant, and I was the most paranoid puss. I still am. But there were so many things that were prescribed for me when I was pregnant that I was like, I'm not taking that. What are you kidding me? And a lot of people are much more trusting. But I always remember the thalidomide babies. I'm sure that you do too. Moms who were told, you're having miscarriages, take thalidomide, and they were taking thalidomide for something else, I think too. And then they had children that
morning
were born.
sickness.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
And then there was DES that has caused problems. You have to be really careful. We really want to encourage all moms that are pregnant or about to be pregnant, ask questions. Ask, does it cross the blood-brain barrier? And you have to make decisions about whether you trust the information that you're getting. But devastating for these moms.
Yeah, they really weren't warned about the possibilities with this until much later than it was sort of hidden from them.
And devastating later on. You and I both know with autism, there's a certain amount of guilt about, was it something I did?
Right.
Was it something I didn't do? And that it really doesn't matter if you birthed a child or not. That goes across everyone, right? And so then when you find out something like this, that it's, oh my goodness.
And a lot of these mothers say they blame themselves.
Of course. Of course that's what they're feeling. We want to say to them, it's not your fault. It is not your fault at all. But devastating to find out that something you took has resulted in this and that people had the information and sat on it. Devastating, absolutely devastating. In any case, check what you're taking now. Let's hopefully we can prevent somebody else from feeling this way. We also have, everybody's talking about this new 2-minute questionnaire that may detect autism. And I was saying to you, I don't know whether they just changed one little part of it, but this has been around for more than 12 years.
Okay.
Because I remember after my son was diagnosed saying, wasn't there supposed to be some way that we were supposed to catch this?
Right.
And I think it was called the CARS assessment, that every pediatrician was supposed to do with 2-year-olds. And when I went, because I had switched pediatricians, so when I went back to the original pediatrician who had not been around my child when he turned 2, and I said he's been diagnosed with autism, and he said, really? Because he had seen him when he was a year. He was like, really? And he said, well, let's do the assessment. And I remember him saying, because the first one is, does your child point or gesture to show interest or to get attention? And I remember the doctor asking him something and saying, do you know where the light is? Can you point to the light? And of course, my kid was, and couldn't, right? So that's the first one on the list. The second one, does your child have an unusual or variable response to sound, seems not to hear, or is oversensitive or overreacts to noise? Like, wouldn't we have answered yes to these questions? Number 3 is, does your child smile or make regular eye contact with others? And all of these you answer yes, no, or sometimes. Number 4 is responds to name when called, which when Jem descended into autism, that went away.
Wyatt never responded to his name either.
Really?
Right.
Number 5, your child shows interest in children at play. Number 6 is, does your child enjoy doing handshakes or peekaboo?
Right.
Mine would have been no. 7, your child relates to others by babbling, gesturing, talking, or changing expressions. Now, my child would do that with inanimate objects, but not with me. Number 8, uses 3 or more words regularly or appropriately. See, I would have said no to this. 9, speaks in phrases, for example, want juice, go bye-bye.
Right.
And so it's yes, no, and sometimes are the answers. And number 10, laughs when others laugh. And I would have said no to that.
I would have said no to that too,
And
depending on the age that Wyatt was at. I think at age 2, I would have said no to that. At age 1, I would have said yes.
Exactly, me too. So then the doctor is supposed to look at them and see which ones, because there are certain ones that you should say no to,
Right.
and certain ones that you should say yes to, and can quickly say your child needs
He's
to
at risk and needs further testing, right?
needs further, but immediately needs to be, it's that child find of this
Assess.
child is definitely at risk, and we can start services. So they're saying that this assessment should be done 18 to 36 months, that age range. But the test that we were supposed to get was supposed to be right at their 2nd birthday.
Right.
Now, if you guys remember from watching the show, we covered a couple of months ago that the people who give the standards to people about what appropriate tests are decided that all kids don't need to have a screening for
Right,
autism.
right.
So it becomes us, the parents, we need to advocate. And I know that all of you are out there and have a girlfriend that has a child and that at some point has said, how would I know? Don't wait until they're worried. You can send them this. It's in the Sun right now, the actual assessment in the Sun. You can look at it online, 2-minute autism questionnaire, and you can find it in the Sun. And tell them, oh, there's this assessment, and you can do it. You can take it to the pediatrician and make them do it. And ask them, did you do it?
Right,
Did you do it? You
right,
passed it. Yay!
right.
But we need to take the reins here.
Right.
And
Because
make
the
sure that
pediatrician
kids-
might not.
No, well,
do
they've
it,
been
so
told that it isn't necessary.
It's not necessary,
Which
right.
makes
And
me want to
certainly
run
my
screaming around the
pediatrician
building
didn't-
with my hair on fire.
Certainly my pediatrician didn't do a test like this. or
No, my
even
pediatrician told me I was crazy.
Yeah, so did mine.
So, and then I had to go back to the old pediatrician who went, oh, okay, not crazy. Okay,
There's a
another
breakthrough drug.
Yes, that's the other story.
The FDA creates, they grant breakthrough therapy status, which apparently is a big deal to be given this status to help expedite what could be the first drug to treat the core symptoms of autism. Swiss drug maker Roche said this week that the FDA has granted breakthrough therapy designation for the development of, I'm going to try and say this, balovaptan, a medication with potential to improve core social interaction and communication in those with autism. It's already been used in a study on adults, and they've had clinical trials with adults, and now they're looking to look at clinical trials with children and adolescents on the spectrum.
And
another one's on the way.
And at this point in time, we should be clear about the fact that there are only 2 drugs that are usually prescribed with an autism diagnosis, and they're not widely prescribed, but people are getting risperidone.
Right.
And then the other one, aproposal, I've never heard of anybody getting that, but apparently that's something that gets diagnosed.
But that's to treat irritability and
and they're not really something, there are lots of side effects.
Right.
So they're not widely advised, and it's not like you get a big social
No, you don't.
Benefit from it. So this is pretty interesting that it's been fast-tracked as a drug that they're going to try to move quickly to get it approved, targeting an increase in social skills.
Right.
You haven't seen that before.
No, we
Should
have
be
not.
Interesting. Okay, so in any case, and if you want more about that story, you can go to disabilityscoop.com. They have a wonderful site there with lots of good information. I guarantee you'll find other stories that you want to sit and read. You'll go down the rabbit hole. We've got 2 guests on the show today.
Yes, we do.
Dr. Amy Sarin is going to be with us to talk about touch points. I've got them right here on the desk, charging. Some technology to help reduce anxiety
and stress.
in all kinds of
Yes,
people,
not just those with
including
autism.
children and adults on the autism spectrum. So we're going to talk about that. And then later on in the show, we have Nancy Silberkleit from Archie Comics. There's a new character in the Archie Comics. And guess where she's at on the spectrum. So we're going to talk about that with her. So stick with us. We're going to be back after these messages.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman with TACA. We're here with the TACA Facts, the most common questions in the autism journey, real life questions and answers for your family. Oh boy, this one gets me in trouble. I get this question probably at least a dozen times a week, but how do I get my significant other on board? Whether it's having ABA done in your home, 5 days a week, speech therapy, or even biomedical intervention. I'm talking to you as a parent. It happened to me in the autism journey 3 years after diagnosis. I felt like I'd been through a war zone. I don't have pictures. I don't remember those 3 years. It was awful, and I'm surprised my husband and I made it out of that war zone. So here's some of the tips that helped me get through those 3 years and made it a better marriage, because he's the one I want to be with. First thing you need to do, and this goes for dudes and chicks, replace all the bathroom reading material. Now, whether you just had an independent evaluation with a neuropsychologist, or you just went to your doctor, your MAPS doctor, to help your child get through some serious medical issues, replace the labs, replace the neuropsych eval, and put that all in the bathroom. That's where we do our best reading and thinking, after all. It's one of the most simplistic things that you can do, but literally replace all the bathroom reading material. 2, very important that twice a year you have a meeting and you schedule it with your spouse to say, we're going to do the next 6 months of planning, whether it's just create a quick list, identify the issues or the self-stimulatory behavior or the things that you need to do to help your child with autism make the project. Let me give you an example. We created the Man Project. My son was becoming a teenager, and we found ourselves living a little bit in a rut, babying him a little too much. So what we did was we created a Man Project, and we identified a list of the skills and the things that we wanted my son or our son to learn. We agreed to it, and then we came up with a plan that we could activate over the next 6 months. And my next favorite, don't forget to have sex with your spouse. Often you will feel disconnected with the person that you love. And if you're not connected with them, you're not connected with them in that way. You're not connecting with them in your autism journey. So my husband laughs, he calls me Dr. Ruth, so I'm giving you a coupon to please just go have sex with your spouse. That will help move things along, but also make it a little more cohesive in a house of chaos, living with autism. So hi, this is Lisa signing out as Dr. Ruth. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa Ackerman with TACA, and we'll talk to you at the next TACA Facts.
And welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We are now joined by neuropsychologist Dr. Amy Sarin, who practices medicine at her clinic in Arizona, the Sarin Center. And she is, along with child advocate Vicki Mayo, founded the Touchpoint Solution in 2015 with the mission of bringing relief to millions of people who suffer from stress and anxiety, and that includes those on the autism spectrum. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sarin.
Thank you so much for having me, ladies.
We're so thrilled to have you. And I've got the touch points here in my hands, and I've got the app open on my phone. So I'm going to be playing a little bit with these, but let's start by, so I want to show these again to everybody. They're little fabulous things. And I have wristbands that can go with them as well, and clips so that I can put them in my pockets or on the side of my pants. But maybe, Dr. Sarin, you could tell us what these are and what they do.
Yeah, so touch points are neuroscience wearables that incorporate a technology called BLAST, bilateral alternating stimulation. This is a non-invasive technology using haptic microvibrations, and it seems to give people a huge relief in stress in as little as 30 seconds. Why this is important for individuals on the autism spectrum is that usually the sensory inputs cannot be tolerated by their brains. In other words, normal sensory input like sights and sounds and seeing people move in front of you can be tolerated by most people. But in individuals with autism, that creates a nervous system reactivity and puts them into fight or flight. The touch points seem to help them not go into fight or flight as often, and they can then tolerate the environments in the classrooms or at the mall. We even have families that are now taking their children to Disneyland, and it's really, really been a great journey in seeing what touch points can do for this population.
How did you develop these?
I'm a neuropsychologist, and I also do therapy. I'm actually an EMDR trained therapist, and EMDR seems to be very successful in treating conditions like PTSD and trauma because it has bilateral stimulation. And I thought, well, what if we took the bilateral stimulation and just used that as a standalone? And as I started researching this effects on the brain and realizing this could be used outside of the therapeutic context, I had these aha moments, and I started improving the waveform and improving the technology, and now we're where we are today, and it's just incredible.
Shannon, are you able to?
Okay, so while you guys were talking, I just took a challenge, and it was kind of amazing.
Okay.
It really, so I got these in my hands. I don't know what you know what I was expecting? When I was a waitress, we used to have beepers that buzz.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was expecting, and it was much less than that. But what was fascinating, it asked me to think of something really stressful, and I had a really stressful morning. Really stressful morning. It asked me to rate how stressful the event was, to think of an event that was stressful, and then to kind of put myself in the moment. And since I'm still half there, it was very easy for me to get in the moment. And then it asked me to, if I was feeling any symptoms of the stress, to tell them how much in rating on a 1 to 10 scale, and then to start. And I felt this immediate, it's hard to say, but like a cooling.
Okay.
Like I immediately felt better.
Was there a vibration?
Like the teeniest, tiniest little tingle.
Okay.
Was I supposed to feel more than that?
Not necessarily. I mean, the settings that we start people out on are quite gentle, and it can get a little more intense if you turn up the intensity. There's multiple settings on these. But no, it doesn't need to be that drastic in order to override your stress response. And what you just experienced is typical. We get, on average, a 70% stress reduction in 30 seconds. And I'm so glad you did that live, because I love people are always shocked, like, we hope this worked. But then when you really feel it inside of yourself, you can't deny that it has a profound effect and that it's really that quick.
It was stunning, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was, instantly a rearranging of how I felt.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
You said there was a questionnaire. How is this used with children? Since there has to be a questionnaire answer?
Well, that was just for a challenge.
Oh, okay.
So I would imagine you wouldn't have to do a challenge with a child. Is that correct?
No, you don't have to do the challenge with a child. If you have the app version, our originals, what it prompts you to do the touchpoint challenge, and that's just to demonstrate exactly what you experienced. But you can just turn them on and have them running without doing that. So when you're working with the population of children with autism, it actually is good to start out at a very low setting, very slow and not very intense, because some of them are very sensory reactive. And if you turn it up too much, it's kind of like going into a loud movie theater and wanting to run out the other direction before you wait for your hearing to kind of adjust to the new sound level. So we want to introduce it to kids on the spectrum and some of the lower frequencies, and then they'll get used to that sensation, and it'll be calming them down in real time. Most children on the spectrum actually wear touch points all day at school, and this is why we've designed the battery life to last between 6 and 10 hours on one charge.
All right, they wear them on their wrist, or how do they wear them?
They can wear them on their wrist, so I've got mine on my wrist right now. You can actually put them in pockets or socks. You can put them in tank top straps, and we now have on our website sweatbands with zippers. So there's just a little more protection in there. And a lot of the kids on the spectrum really like that. Some of them were not liking the sensation of the wristbands, but they do like the cloth on the actual sweatbands that are on our website. And so that's another way to use them.
Okay.
It's fascinating. Do you
Yeah.
want to play? Do you
Yeah,
want to?
sure.
Because you can hold them in your hands, and I love that on your app it says to let you know how we. So just you have to.
So-
the key is that you have to hold. They have to be on both sides of the body. Does not work. So just hold them in your hands.
Okay.
And I'm gonna start it and see if you feel anything.
Can you think of something stressful first
Okay.
and rate it on a scale of 0 to 10?
Okay.
You don't have to tell us what it is.
Okay.
Got it in your mind?
Okay, you do.
Great. And how stressful does that feel now on a scale of 0 to 10 right now?
It's not on yet.
It's not on yet.
We're getting
not
you
on
into
yet.
a
I'm
state
just
of
getting
being
your
stressed.
Okay. You're getting my baseline.
Yes.
Okay.
So are you? What would you
there's a-
say? Are you
there's
pretty? Are you feeling stress symptoms at the
If
moment?
I think about something, I can get to a 10 on it.
Are you
Okay,
feeling it
great.
right
I
now?
mean, not great that it's 10.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
My Bluetooth is
where do
being
you feel it in
funny.
your?
But go ahead, Dr. Saren, talk to her.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. Where do you feel it in your body when you think of that stressful situation that you were thinking of?
I feel it throughout my whole body.
Okay. And so notice that, and then she can turn those on for you.
My Bluetooth is having a hard time in the studio. It worked before, but let me see if I can get it to look at them and see if they're green.
She has
I might
to,
have
yeah,
just
turn
had
them
enough
both on.
charge. I might have had just enough charge for mine. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't
color.
think it's going to do it for us
Okay.
because I didn't get them charged enough. That's okay.
Well, we can do that another time.
We will play with
we
these.
also
We are going to be playing, yes.
And we have basics also. The basic version does not run on the app. It's just the 2 contained units. And a lot of times for children in the classrooms, that is a little bit more convenient because they don't have to have an external control for that. But for the kids who are really sensory sensitive, who want a lot of customized settings, then the version that you have, the originals, seem to be their favorite.
Very cool. Very interesting technology. So for parents that are watching this, I also love too, when I was setting up the app, it asked me some questions about my stress and it gave me some recommendations of presets that I might want to try, that I might want to set it on a certain setting when I'm first waking up in the morning, that when I'm having a stressful moment, that I might want to set it at this, and before I go to bed, that I might want to set it for a certain interval, and then you can say how long you want it and what strength, and which I found really fascinating, whether it's for adults or for kids. But so if people are watching this, Dr. Saren, and they want to try touch points, where can they go to get these?
They can go online to ilovetouchpoints.com and order them directly from our website.
And you got a lot of buzz, and I meant that both
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively. You got a lot of buzz about it because people are interested and wanting to try. Is there a place where you have kiosks or something where people can go and give them a try?
We do set up pop-up shops from time to time, and those are announced on our Facebook page. We may be doing one February 20th in Arizona for people who would like to try them out.
Okay.
And then we post on our website and also our social media events that we'll be going to where people can meet me and talk to me or try the touch points out. And I want to say one thing about the moms. Can I just talk to the moms?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Address the moms directly.
Don't forget about yourself. If you have a child that has a diagnosis on the spectrum, you have stress.
Right.
And so don't leave yourself out of the equation as you're juggling all the things in your life. Make sure that you're using touch points for yourself and taking really good care of yourself, because my guess is you're the glue that holds everything together.
That's
I
right.
think that's amen to that. We stood there. I gotta say too, there were a lot of you and I stood there yesterday, and we were trying to figure out, did we want to try these on Wyatt first?
Right.
Did we want to try them on Jem first? On you first? On me first? And your first, because it's always about the objections, right? Your first thing was, I don't know if I can get Wyatt to wear them, right? My thing was, there were wristbands, and I was like, oh, I'm allergic to nickel. Are they nickel-free wristbands, right? But then I read on the pamphlet that it could lower stress by 71% in 30 seconds, and I went, yeah, I'm trying them.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been told this week that I have to get my blood pressure down. I'm the first person up for these. But we want to have everybody try them. But as we were going through it, the fact that I could hold them in my hands, I don't have to wear the wristbands. Doesn't matter whether the wristbands are nickel-free or not. The fact that you could, you were saying, I don't think I can get Wyatt to wear wristbands, but you could put these in his pockets. I love the fact that you don't have to actually have skin touching them. So you can put them on the sides of pants. You can put them in the pockets. You can put them in the socks. But the key is that you got to have them on either side. There are just a lot of things about this that are really
So they
cool
don't
and
have to
flexible.
be. Do they have to be in touch with the skin? They do. They don't.
No. Nope.
Just on either side of the body, each one.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
If we were, what's that?
I said, isn't that cool?
I think it's cool.
Yeah,
we're not admitting anything. There's nothing invasive about this. It has to do with the way your brain processes information and makes the decision about its stress response. And we can't interfere with that without touching the skin.
Okay.
And of course we want to know how, but I think that's the secret sauce, right?
Well, I can tell you some hypotheses. There's a network in the brain called the salience network, and this is what's integrating sensory information and kicking off the stress response. The stress response is like a light switch, and it goes off and on very quickly. That's why we can override it very quickly. And the salience network, in very interesting, is actually one of the networks that if we look at it on an EEG, now we think we can actually diagnose or look at features of autism based on how that network is functioning.
This is fascinating stuff. Neuroscience. Well, really cool stuff.
And once again, how do people get them?
People can go to our website. It's ilovetouchpoints.com.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you,
All right,
Doctor.
thank you, Dr.
We're going to play a
Sharon, for
bunch
joining
more
us.
with these and try them out on
Yes,
different people, but I had an immediate, like, whoosh.
And do you still feel the effects?
I mean, I feel better than I felt all week. So
Okay.
there you go.
Well,
And
it's a powerful testimony.
That's typical. That's actually a typical response. We actually have a blood pressure study going on right now, and we're seeing a real drop in systolic blood pressure and also resting heart rate. So if that's what the doctor told you to do, test your blood pressure pre and post touch points and see what the difference is, because using those over time might be one of the things that you can do to help out.
Well, that's kind of amazing because Mama does not want to be on blood pressure medicine.
No.
So, no, absolutely love it. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Wicked cool. Touch
Good
point.
luck with this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
We're going
all right.
to take a little break before
And then
we come back with
Nancy
Nancy
Silverflight.
from
Plus, which we have a couple of really fun things that we want to share with our audience.
Right.
I guess I'm just going to go ahead and tease one of them right now. We got named one of the top 10 podcasts about autism earlier this week for the year 2017.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
You're a part of this. And this is from Healthline. We were one of the top 10 best podcasts about
well,
autism.
you should be.
Well, thank you. We feel like we deserve a spot there,
Right.
and glad and proud to be named. And I want to thank everybody who's been a part, because that's certainly, we're a live show. It's all about the audience and our
Right,
guests.
right.
So we thank everybody. We're all a part of that. So a very cool thing.
And I want to announce the military run is coming up.
Yes.
The Active Day for Military Families on April 21st, 2018, at the same location that we've had it at. It's at Tecolote Shores Park at Mission Bay in San Diego. And it's our 8th annual One Hope Active Day for Military Families Run and Festival.
We're going to be talking more about this with our audience and encouraging them to be either runners on the day of or be virtual runners, which
Right.
means you just get together a team and you sit at home and enjoy watching the fact that military families will get grants.
Yes.
Because of the things that you do.
And if you want to register, you can go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org/run. That's ActToday from militaryfamilies.org/run.
There we go. All right, let's take a break, and then we're going to be back with Nancy Silberkleit, and she's going to talk with us about the new character in Archie Comics who is on the autism spectrum. It's a girl, you guys. Stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
No, I can't help you pee. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Big prayer for your pee-pee. Big prayer for your pee-pee. Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I want to welcome to the show for the first time Nancy Silberkleit. She is a former teacher who has moved into the boardroom on a very important, iconic thing from all of our childhood, the Archie Comics, where she is a co-CEO. And they have done something really important under her direction. taken the subject of bullying and brought it to light within the Archie comics with a very important character who happens to be on the autism spectrum. Her name is Scarlett. First of all, we love the fact that it's a girl, and I know
Yes.
that our self-advocates are jumping up and down and
Right.
shouting and saying, yay, it's a girl. And so we want to talk with Nancy a little bit about the project Kindness Works and Scarlett. But first, Nancy, welcome to the show. We're so thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Nancy. But I always love to say zam, wham, wow to your audience and to both of you for what you're doing. I think, Nancy, you have the foundation Acts Now. And
Act
that's
Today.
Exactly,
Autism care and treatment today, right.
yeah, Act Today. And then Shannon with, this initiative that, Everyday Autism Miracles. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that was actually, that was a radio show that I did that kind of was sort of the beginnings of autism-live. So, yes. You did your homework, Nancy.
Well, I like to because I was a teacher. So
Yes.
you always have to be prepared. But the the initiatives that both of you have been passionate about really aligns with what I'm about. I'm always just that natural heart of a teacher is always looking to see what can I do to make things better, to give that something that may need something. So coming from the classroom to the boardroom, I have this wonderful passion to utilize graphic literacy. And when Archie Comics speaks, everyone listens. They listen globally. And as we all know, I've been using the term neurodiversity is a global issue.
Yes, talk about that trending term, neurodiversity. That's being used more and more.
Well, that is just something with the launch of the character Scarlett, where I've been speaking to people globally, and it seems that the word that they will email or in conversation is neurodiversity. We have gender diversity. So it seems, and that goes to the issue of being tagged. We all know when one is tagged with something, it usually brings, other adjectives. The sign I have in back of me was a story done in a magazine, an educational magazine, Horizon. And it was a story about how I had no love of reading. And that all stemmed when I had been retained, left back. And that was something that I carried deep inside me, never talked about, never shared, because when you're left back, what does everybody say? Not kind things. So I feel the, people who are in the autistic or, talking about on the spectrum, felt that neurodiversity was maybe a more uplifting, positive name for people who are wired, with that respond to things differently, respond to light, respond to noise differently.
And so tell us about Scarlett. She fits that definition, correct?
Absolutely. And I was pleased Shannon pointed out that Scarlett is a female. But what's more important about Scarlett, there she is. She is very skilled in building. So, bravo to, my writer, Ray Felix, for, putting that in. I don't know if he was really thinking that, but possibly. I have to have a conversation with him. He's been very busy, but there she is. And she's building. And later on, it's mentioned that Scarlett must be building, skyscrapers by now. So that's putting, I feel, a female in an area that usually has been dominated by men.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because we do have some women that are on the autism spectrum that have these skill areas, just like we have some young men that have skill areas. And I love that you're putting a positive spin on things. We're not just looking at what Scarlett isn't great at, we're looking at what Scarlett can do. Just fabulous, Nancy.
Absolutely. And, utilizing graphic literacy, each panel can open up a huge, story. If we could go back to that image with Scarlet Building, I don't think there's any words there. I'm trying to know. Look at that. So here is a panel that can spark conversation. And as we all know, how we engage with one another is a big issue now. And I was pleased with the title. I kept thinking for, a long time, and, even, asking, my partner, John Goldwater, can you think of a title? And then I was very happy that we came up with Kindness Works. So, it's providing a platform to have conversation.
Right. And how can people get this comic with Scarlet? How can we get to know Scarlet?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I happen to have another comic book. I've been passionate about many other issues, and one was environment. So I have an environmental story here. And I was wondering, will this comic book get to Abu Dhabi? Will it get to Steamboat, Colorado? And I said, this is such a huge issue with how we treat one another. I want to make sure people get Kindness Works. So I'm having people contact me directly or through PayPal. They go to PayPal, and it's, and they just type in Nancy.ArchieComics with an S @gmail. And people are welcome to email me, and I can, have a conversation with them. So it's, passing that seed, my passion on inclusion, for them to be the ambassadors, to get out there and start the conversation, the awareness that those people who are neurodiverse have a difficult time talking about how they do want to be included. And how much time do we have? Because I'd like to share a little story.
Yes, you can go ahead. We have plenty of time.
So as a teacher in Paramus, New Jersey, we had a wonderful program with, the autistic population. And when they came to us, practically in diapers, they were, of course, nonverbal. And there were so many of them that later on that blossomed. But I remember this one young man, he was there all the ways up to 4th grade. And he came to me one day and said and expressed how he felt the others were not being kind to him. They were not being nice to him. They were leaving him out. And here he was engaging with these feelings. So as we all know, that has always been within him. Nobody wants to be excluded. It was just for all those years he couldn't express himself. Right. So it's been a very important issue, and I feel that to bring that conversation out, if we're going to talk about, let's have a conversation on inclusion, I don't know if everybody will listen. So offering a comic book to let one engage in those panels and really develop those values on a personal level for themselves, they may be more apt to spread that conversation. So I'm reaching out to people, and they can reach out to me or go to PayPal and become the ambassador for Kindness Works. Get that conversation started.
Wonderful.
What has the reception for the story been like thus far?
It has been global. I've had people contact me from Switzerland, Argentina, London, and it's just been enormous. And, I'm pleased with, the graphics you're showing now. Fernando Ruz was the penciler. Andrew Thomas was the letterer. Dhiraj Mishra, he is all the ways in New Delhi, India. He did the inking and coloring. So I wanted to be, and Andrew, he's from Canada. So I was, trying to pick a diverse team to, spark that conversation, because this is everywhere. Well, kindness is a big conversation, as I said, and we want to, talk about it.
Once again, tell us how people can contact you.
Through Nancy.ArchieComics and ArchieComics @gmail. So I'll do it again, Nancy.ArchieComics @gmail.com. And they are welcome to go to PayPal.
Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for creating this wonderful
Yes.
character.
Good luck with Scarlett.
Thank you. And everyone grow that kind heart and let it keep growing.
Okay, thank you. We
Fabulous.
will.
Thank you, Nancy. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back just to finish out the show very quickly. So stick with us.
Are those your eyes? Is that your smile? I've been looking at you forever, yet I never saw you before. Are these your hands?
As a celebrity, whatever that means, you want to do what you can to get back. The way I've always looked at it, if I'm available, I'm going to be there. And when you get there and you see what folks are doing and the lives that they're touching, how can you not want to continue to be a part of it?
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes.
What can we all do to make a difference? Not only with trying to find a cure, but to help the children and the families that may not have the resources for these kids.
When you're looking back at me, now I understand what...
And none of us are doing enough, but I think that we're doing as much as we possibly can. Because we all live in society. And the more we can all do to help society, the more it helps all of us. Yeah.
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes. And for the first time, I'm seeing who you are. I can't believe how much I see when you're looking back at me. Now I understand what love is. Love is. For the first time.
And we're back. It's an interesting comic book character.
Absolutely, and I'm encouraged because it seems like women in autism are coming more to the forefront.
Right,
In
often
fact,
ignored. And
yes. Tomorrow on the show, Elaine Hall is going to be here, and we
okay.
think she's going to have at least one person from the Miracle Project that was a cast member of the film that I went to last week that was called Please Stand By. It features Dakota Fanning.
Okay.
Like my brain just went blank for a moment. Dakota Fanning plays a young 24-year-old girl on the spectrum. And she's living in a group home, and the people in the group home are actors that we know from the Miracle Project.
Okay.
So Elaine Hall was the coach, acting coach on the set, and so she's going to be here with us to talk about that. We went and saw a screening of it last week. It's available right now. It's in limited theaters, but it's available on is it Amazon or Netflix? It's on one of those.
Okay.
Forgive me for not knowing.
Please stand by.
Please stand by. And it's also on demand right now on most of your TVs. If you get on demand, you can order it on demand. I think it's $10, but for the whole family, that's cheaper than going to the movies, right?
Right.
And it's a lovely, beautiful film that anybody would appreciate, and especially if you're a Star Trek fan or love somebody on the spectrum, you should definitely rent it
It
and
has
watch
Star
it.
Trek as a theme in it?
Well, one of the things in the film, because, you know, a lot of our kids have special interests,
Right.
and she has a very specific special interest in Star Trek, and she writes a script. There's a contest, and the script has to be delivered to a certain place at a certain time on a certain day, and it's kind of her journey with this script about how, because she's going to get it there one way or the other, and you know, a relationship with her sibling.
Yeah.
Because things have changed a lot in their lives. It's a fascinating film, and it's very funny. It's very heartwarming, and you'll see a lot of actors on the spectrum in the film
That are actually used in the
and
movie.
people that we know that have been here on the show. So that's a very fun thing. But you can get it on demand right now. You don't have to wait and go see it in the theater.
Okay.
And I'm sure that they would appreciate the support. So that's one of the things that we're having on the show tomorrow. We are also having Bonnie Yates, of course, is going to be with us. And of course, I just drew a complete blank. Who else is on the show, Samantha? I can't remember. Oh, Oh, Beverly Downing is going to be on the show.
Who's
That's
Beverly
right.
Downing?
We have a new segment here on the show where we have more experts, more BCBAs that are answering questions. So we have not been able to get all of your questions answered on Wednesday. So Beverly Downing is going to be here, and I'm thrilled to introduce all of you to her.
She's a BCBA?
She's a BCBA, and last week we had another one. So each week we're going to be featuring different people, and we had Karen Nolte on last week, and she was amazing. It was really fun. I think you'd enjoy the answers she gave to the questions. So that's a fun thing. Plus, which we'll do we do mindfulness moment on Thursday.
Right.
I think you would really enjoy that. And if we have time, we do our autism in the classroom. But we'll definitely.
Sounds like a packed day.
It is. It's always a packed day on Thursday. So, and plus our jargon of the day. And if there's a news story that makes the top of my head come off, we'll always go back to that. We're out of time, but I want to say thank you to Raina. I have your phone number, and I'll be walking it down the hallway right now. And to all of you, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.